Hello, and welcome to this week's episode of the And Both podcast. My guest is Mary D'Agostino. And, normally when I come on and do these intros for the episodes, it's a lot about their bio and their background. But this one is that, but it's also, this is the first grandmother that we've had on the show, which I think is awesome. And it's about time after 75 episodes. So Mary is a grandma to 7 and a mom of 5 of her own grown children. And she is a creator of a healing arts practice and an author. She has had kids over 2 centuries, seen a ton of changes in the world and parenting and all of these conversations. And the thing that I really took away from our episode together was how much it feels like you're hanging out with someone who's, like 3 elephants ahead on the elephant walk. Someone that you can say, I'm struggling with this right now. And they say, I went through that and here's where I go. And I think those stepwise increments of the story are sometimes, I think, what is most helpful to people that are in the trenches of it and trying to navigate how to just do and just be. And it's definitely awesome to have the experience of sitting down and talking with someone who really knew themselves very well and was very forthcoming with that throughout all of the challenges that she's had in life. And so I think that today's episode is it's like a warm cup of tea kind of thing, except it's the summertime and it's hot. So maybe a cold glass of tea, whatever you want to call it. But anyways, enjoy Mary, and here she is. Hello, and welcome to the And Both podcast. Here we are going to hear from moms and those in motherhood that are doing the thing that works for them. They are honoring themselves alongside the all-encompassing role and level of expectation that is motherhood. And we are going to hear from as many different people as possible in their own experience. So you can find people to relate to. You can hear stories that will make you laugh, make you cry, all of the above, and that we will come together as a community to support one another in a way that is holistic and honoring of the woman and the mother as a whole. Hello, and welcome to another episode of the And Both podcast. I am here today with Mary D'Agostino. Welcome, Mary.
Thank you.
I'm excited to have you here. But before we kick off on everything, how about if you let people know a little bit about you and what you want them to know?
Sure. So I have a healing arts practice. I'm a grandma. So I heard that I'm the first grandma on the show, and I'm very excited about that. So yeah, I have 5 children and they're grown up. I have one son who I say he's in spirit, so that he passed away in 2017. And I have 7 grandchildren. And I recently had, a year ago, my first granddaughter. So she was such a welcome surprise and miracle in our lives. So about me, I'm an entrepreneur. So I've been raising kids, and all along the way, I've created a business. And what I do now is I have a counseling practice. I do energy healing and intuitive work and writing and journaling. And we are in our 20th year of a journaling class. We call it our class, but it's just a gathering of women that we've been doing it for 20 years. And we write and journal and reflect, and we've been there for each other through all the happenings of 20 years. And I'm proud of that. But all of my work is about connecting others with their inner light, their true selves, their authentic self, and, really living that way. And that's why I'm here with you. I feel like you try to do that too. Who are we?
Right.
What lights us up?
Right. Exactly. I love that because, that's the whole point, right? Is that you can go through your life, living your life like you're supposed to, or what you think you're supposed to, or you can go through living your life in the way that works. We're not advocating people start burning things down and all of that, but we're saying, you've got to do the things that align with where you feel like that's a part of you and whatever that means.
We're told to do a lot of things. I had to overcome a lot of responsibility and duties that were told that were mine and realize over and over again, what is it I really want to be doing? Who am I? What, and I didn't literally burn things down, but I did end relationships. And I help people that are going through transitions now, mostly women, and support them. And it isn't always about that. It's about building a life that is, I say, that belongs to you, that is yours. You can say, I belong in my life. I create it. I've made it to be, to look like me, to be an expression of me. And there's nothing like that in my experience of my many years of living. Well, got a few more going forward. But yeah, it's like a life that belongs to me, and it doesn't belong to what you're told you should be doing, society or family or those outer voices that say you should do this. And some of those you agree with or want to do it, but it has to be, our lives are a series of becomings, becoming this or becoming that. And sometimes we need to, often turn in and say, wait, am I doing this for myself? Am I doing it for someone else? How does this make me feel? And that's just an important part of self-reflecting, but it's more than that. It's just a checking in and having space for that, having space in your life, because our lives can get really full and of, our responsibilities and duties as people, we want to fulfill them. Then, there's really teasing out what belongs to us and what doesn't. Like, I ask myself that now a lot, like, what's mine to do? What's mine? What resonates with me? Well, there's always a lot to participate in, even when your children are grown. And
yeah, I mean, how old is your oldest?
My oldest is 47, and I had her, I was 17 I was 18 when I had her, not planned. I had other plans for my life. I was going to college. I was really a good student, and I was so excited. This was in the late 70s. So she was born in 1977. She's 47 and has my only daughter. So she has 3 sons. So my grandson. I became a grandmother. I drilled into her, please don't get pregnant early, because I decided to have her. That was not with the grain, it was more of back then in the 70s and in California, it was, I had a choice. What do I want to do? And I decided, I want to have the baby. And then my boyfriend was like, okay, we'll get married. And I was like, okay.
Did you get married? Did you stay married?
For 4 years, and we had a baby. And I have to tell you, the other funny thing is, look, I used birth control. So it was like, oops. So what the heck, So I was really planning a different outcome for myself. And I think that happens a lot. We think, we're on this trajectory of where we should be or where we must be or where we're going. And the truth is, life has a lot of surprises, I should say. And that's part of it. That's part of, it can give people a lot of anxiety. And I see what's happening now too. It's like, well, this isn't what we planned. This isn't what we want, not what we thought. And since I've been through many of those experiences of, well, that wasn't my plan, but okay, there's a certain amount of risk involved in living.
Yeah, I mean, for real. And I think too, it's also important, that when you think about timing and planning things out and having these really like black and white, solid, draw and pen kind of ideas, that especially around motherhood, you quickly realize that everything's gray, right? Like you might get pregnant unexpectedly, or it might take you 10 years to have a baby, and there's no way to know. And then you throw in other situations like you get pregnant right away and then you experience secondary infertility along the way. And how does that all work out? So people, you can't really sit down with this big map of life and say, okay, I'm going to be this old when I have this baby and this old when I have this baby. And it goes for everything. It goes for career. I mean, I do something now for work that if you had told me 15 years ago, this is the thing that you're going to do when you've got your 4 kids at home. I mean, the idea of like 4 kids, all of that, like everything it was different. And it's not that I had a plan to only have a certain number of children, but I sort of was on this idea of like, not what will happen, but I had 1 kid and they were great. And I had another one and also great. And it's like, this is kind of fun and I like this. And, it's not, I don't get really sick when I'm pregnant. So let's just like have another baby. And I think that, but if you go into it saying, I'm going to have this many kids and I'm going to have this and this, it gets so tight really
Yeah.
quickly. Everything sort of
Yes.
feels locked up.
Get tight. It gets constricting. And as you know, with 4 children and with however amount, but four is quite a big family nowadays. I had 5 and it's like, there's always, you need to be fluid to find out who you are. It's like, well, maybe I love this. Oh, you never expected that you would have all those kids, but you found yourself there. And yeah, our best laid plans, always don't always happen.
Don't always happen.
Some of them do.
Yeah. I mean, and so you've been hearing, right? So becoming a mom 47 years ago to now, and what you see on the news and how you experience this and how your kids are experiencing motherhood, like you're saying, I mean, now even it's bonkers that we can have this conversation, but like you had more options in 1979 or 1977 than some people in some states do in 2025.
I know. That really is upsetting to me because, well, for many reasons, but it is about, we need options. I feel like I did have them. And I actually really appreciated it as a young woman, a young girl, a girl that I was able to have that. And they were Planned Parenthood and they were really great. They, that really upsets me because it feels like a withholding of really medical information, medical well-being, And so I had that. And I've had experiences in my life with my children as a mother, where I needed, my 3rd child. So I had 1 child in 77 and then 1 in 79. And then I got divorced and I was single for a while. And for quite, I got to live my college years. But I had 2 kids, so I had to behave, I had to stay the mom, which I did, But anyway, and then I had my 3rd in 1987. And he and his wife are the one who just had the newborn. Well, she's 1 now, so she's becoming a toddler. But the difference and it's like we need to have access to good medical care to allow us to be healthy and to have healthy children. My son, who was born in 1987, was born with a congenital heart defect, required open heart surgery when he was 11 days old.
Wow.
So I went through all of that with him. And through the years, he's still going and but things have changed. When he was born, they told me, well, he might not live past 10 so here he is. And because of the advances and also the choice of having a child, him and his wife had infertility. And so they had my little granddaughter through treatment. And so the difference I feel is, yeah, it's really weird for me. It's like you can't go back to a time when you're not offering those, what we have medically to enhance life and well being. Take those all away, it feels incredibly wrong and limiting, incredibly limiting. So I feel that we have to keep, as a, back then I had the rights that it was 77. So it was early. And I didn't realize, I feel like I want to also say I see a lot of generational kind of, well, back in when you were, and that, but it's like, no, we didn't take that for granted, and we were told different things that we had to do. We were supposed to do it all. In the 70s, we had to be Wonder Woman and, that all that thing, fry it up in a pan and go get your birth control and have, it's like, and so we were doing that. And I realized I had 70s, then I had 87 baby, then I had a 90 and a 92. So I had three decades of children. And even my grandkids, I can see I have a 16-year-old is my oldest grandchild, and then the youngest is one. But yeah, we still need to be doing like what you're doing and saying, hey, who are we besides moms? And what does motherhood do? I feel like motherhood can be, it's so beautifully varied, but it can be an empowering experience simply because, that's the most powerful thing a human can do is grow its kid. And even if you don't ever do that as you still have that capability. It's like, it's just this, I feel like that's being suppressed right now.
Yeah.
And you can't hold back the power of creation, of humans to, that always gives me kind of hope right now and throughout my life. It's no, I believe that there are so many intelligent, creative scientists and creatives and artists, and that nothing can hold those humans back from making this world a better place for everyone. I truly believe that.
I think it's hard to, having gone through that experience, to say, okay, we had all these choices, but we still understood what these choices are. And now we don't necessarily have the same choices, but we still understand what the choices are. And there's this erosion of trust around like, well, you can't, and that harkens back to, way before our time in general, is that you can't be trusted to make these decisions because you don't understand the ramifications. Like, I don't think anybody understands the ramifications more than the person who's going to be like in the hospital doing the thing, right? It's that
Right.
that realization that when you are in a hospital room having a baby, like no one else is going to push for you. No one else
No.
is going to be there. There might be a lot of people there cheering you on, but it's a singular activity that is happening as a group project.
Yeah.
And
I know.
it's a very weird space to be in because I'll tell you for sure, for me, my first labor, I tried to call the whole thing off. I was like, this was a great job, everyone. We're going to pack it up. And I was like actively pushing and I was like, I'm all done now. And my midwife was like, there's only one way out of this. And I was like, oh, we'll pick it up where we left off tomorrow. And she was like, oh no. But that realization that like everybody in the room is there to support you and they're excited and all that stuff. Nobody else in the room is going to get the job done.
Yeah, I was quite the 17, 18-year-old. I read all the books, and I'm also the oldest of 8. So I saw my mom go through birthing kids. And so I was like, nope, I'm doing that. I know. And yes, it is only, it's up to us to do it. But so I did because I could. I did all natural childbirth. Back then it was like, so I read all the books and I breastfed and I did all the things. But I had an easy, easy. My
Yeah.
labors were not really long. And I always say to this day, if I needed, back then the drugs were different too. They weren't
Mhm.
as wonderfully safe as they are now. But anyway, and then I was there for all of the births of every one of my grandchildren. I was there. I
Wow.
was in the room and I was present with my daughters in law because they wanted me there. But because and you said that, and so it is a singular effort. And my job, I felt as the mother-in-law mom, to support them, it was to try and help them, empower them, like
Mhm.
you can do this. Because it does, birthing, it brings us into ourselves and we got to do it. Yeah, I know.
Mhm.
It's like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. This is
That's
too, I know that feeling.
tired. I'm done.
Well,
Thank you so
I'm done.
much.
I have no more energy. And yeah, it's like, well, okay. Yeah, but you do, you
Right?
do.
Too bad.
Yeah. So I got to be the doula for my grandchildren coming into the world. And that's quite honoring to me.
Do you see, I mean, having gone through motherhood yourself and now you see your kids having kids and your so daughters and daughters-in-law, like how do you what's different for their trip around the motherhood loop and from yours? Do you notice differences?
Yes, all of my daughters are they're very strong women who have I don't know if I raised my sons well because I was kind of well, my first marriage was, 4 years and we were young. But then when I got married again, I was married for about 16, 17 years and had three more children. And it was like what you would call a typical, was not really, it was what my parents did, it was the man goes to work, the woman stays home and has all the babies. And it wasn't very healthy at all. So my kids saw that where I was the mom at home who did everything except for go to work. I did everything. I managed the business is what I used to call it because we had, it was a lot. And so what I see with so I didn't have any help. I didn't have any support from my partner. He was, so much, there's a lot of, it wasn't just the way he was raised and his generation, because I'm from the same generation. And it was his, a lot of issues. And it was all up to me. And I wasn't supported positively at all. So I said, fine, if you're not going to help me, I'm going to do this all by myself. So I did, so I did everything that I could to support myself through that. But what I see different is my kids don't have that. They're very much partners in with each other, and it's not perfect at all, but they're there for each other. Like my sons are participating in the experience of having children and what that all means. And that to me, I feel like that their dad and their dads missed out on all that. They're like, that's not my job. I'm not doing it. And I see that my kids it's a partnership. It's a
Mhm.
real partnership. And my daughter-in-laws and my daughter is a little different. She's doing it, a lot of it on her own. But yeah, they have, and that's where what we talked about, taking away rights to your body, that is so like, what? Because they're, they're so supported in having their children, raising the children. How can you take away rights? It doesn't make sense to me. But so the difference is they have a lot of more support. I'm there. I'm actually kind of their moms too. My daughter-in-laws, more of the mother kind of support mother in their lives. So they're, and I did not have that. I had it with my first mother-in-law for 4 years. But anyway, Yeah, it's like the group, the community. They have good, strong community, more
Mm-hmm.
community support than I ever did. Even
Mm-hmm.
with my sisters, I have sisters. And again, it was a lot of, well, we're looking like we're doing it right, you know? So as long as it looks okay on the outside, that's good. But what's going on behind the scenes was never talked about, never dealt with. But with my kids, that's not the case. They're very much present for their kids too, you know, in a much
Yeah.
different way than for me when I had my kids. It was, and they're a part of the equation, and a part of the family consists of mom, dad, kids, grandma, you know, it's a community,
Mm-hmm.
more effort, which, yeah. So I really like, that makes me really proud in a way of, you know, that unfortunately my kids had to go through some hardship with that, with me not being treated very well and being disrespected in my marriage and as a woman, as a person. But I always held myself in respect in some way until I felt ready and able to get out of those relationships. And I did. And so my kids are able to build something different. So I feel like there's more support, but there's also, you know, with social media and all that, it's like there's a lot more pulling at,
Yeah.
because you know, like even especially now with everything going on out in the world, and my daughter-in-law, for example, she says, "Oh my God, I didn't know what to do is right." And she showed me this meme where a young mom is like, "I'm going to take care of my baby, but I'm not going to shop there. And I can't do this and I can't go there. And I have to, okay, we're all going to the rally." And that, you know, and it's like, what? Oh my God, don't, please, please don't. And so she says it to me and I go, "Look, you know what? You only can do what you can do. And what's your priority? It's you. It's you taking care of you. Because if you don't take care of you, you're not going to be able to take care of your little baby, and you're not going to be able to take care of anything." So, yeah. So I'm always,
Yeah, that harkens back to what you were saying in the beginning, right? Is that like when you see all that stuff on the outside. So if it's in the 70s and people are not talking about it, all of these things, and in the 80s people are not talking about all these things, and in the 90s everyone was too busy trying to continue on this trend, but things start to emerge, right? End of the 90s, that's when we get into like the cell phones, and then early 2000s social media. But you have that experience along the way through all of these decades of saying, okay, this is how it's supposed to look and this is how it's supposed to be. And now, interestingly enough, all of these years later, 40 something years later, it's still a layer of the cake that you get placed in your lap that you don't ask for and don't necessarily want. And it's how do we continue to exist for ourselves and do things for ourselves and remember ourselves in the equation, knowing that through all of these years and all of these time periods, we still get handed the same: make it look nice, don't complain, don't nag, don't whatever, make it be good, frost it up, here we go. But it's the same crap cake.
it sure is. It's the same. I know.
Mhm.
I'm like, don't, yeah, when I always say I am not a boomer, even though I
Mhm.
was like born at the tail end of it. I'm like, but
Mhm.
I don't feel like I can't relate to people who are 10 years older than me, because they were young adults during the Vietnam War. I wasn't. I was like born in this weird era when everything was okay, I guess. But it was just kind of like blasé time and disco and all that, and then cocaine and all that. But it was like, really? So, so I don't feel I relate to that. And I was wearing POW bracelets when I was 13 and writing poetry about the war in Vietnam. And here I am. And it's like the same thing It's the same. So we really have to hone in and go, wait, we can be distracted upon distraction because I guess, it's like the answers aren't out there. And it takes a lot of courage, really. So that's where I think the generations, but you got to find people who are, I like to think, who are real, who have gone through the stuff. Moms, mothers and grandmothers who are like, I stopped praying that. I stopped doing that, even though it was very difficult. And
Mhm.
I lost everything really because I stopped playing I'm supposed to live in the big brick colonial and in this big neighborhood and be married and I did. I was in an East Coast city, a city, very big city. But I lived in the suburbs and it was like, oh, everything looks perfect. And I would say, but I don't belong here. Because everybody was just going, and this was in the mid 90s. And you're
Mhm.
right, because at the end, thank God we didn't have so much social
Oh.
media then. Oh my
Mhm.
gosh. Because I knew, because I'm like that, talk about yourself. Tell me what's up. And we had a neighbor called the Joneses. And I said, we are literally that neighborhood that we're all keeping up with the Joneses and
Mhm.
nobody's talking about what's really going on. And I knew one family was going through this and another, all the stuff was happening in each one of these families. And the community was, let's just say, in one of our political main areas. Interesting. I just put that together. And then I couldn't wait to get out of there. But I ended up leaving. My husband got a job transfer. But then I got to kind of go, oh, I got out of there. And then I got to see I was
Yeah, what
living a
fits.
facade and no wonder I didn't like it, And yeah. And so I think that, yeah, what you're offering to women, it's like, who are we? What makes us happy? What gives us joy? What brings light into
Mhm.
our lives? That's our guidepost. That really is. That's our touchstone. And to know that the distractions are very loud, but I think it's just an expression. I think it's an expression of, I'm going to tell you my opinion as a grandma. I can say these things much easier. No, they're an expression of our dysfunction, really. Our desire and longing to belong, our desire and longing to belong that isn't being fulfilled. And so it's like, look at this picture. And if I go out there and do this, that means I'm a good mom and a good person and I'm doing my part. But it's really a desire to belong and to live a purposeful life, because I think that is a human inside of us. We do have that, and
Mhm.
it's a good thing. But then there's the dysfunction part is where people buy into also, they're buying into things. I see that much more now than when I was, in the 80s and 90s. There's like, oh, go do this retreat or go find yourself here or go take this, trip. And it's like, no, that's also part of the distraction. Like if you take
Yeah.
this because I offer, I don't do I do some retreats, but they're small and very intimate. All of my things I try and have them be small and intimate, but I'm in that kind of that I don't know if you call it a genre or whatever of offering, women
Mhm.
circled together. And even that can feel overwhelming. Or is that really going to help me? Or is that another distraction?
Yeah. Yeah, I think
You know what
that's
I'm saying?
yeah, that's important. It's important to point out because, it's not enough to say, okay, this is what it's supposed to look like. So I will make my life look like that if that means buying the things, doing the things, signing up for the things. But then it's also, I have this discord between how I feel and what I really gravitate towards and believe in. And instead of, pruning out the stuff that doesn't work, you're like, well, I guess I'm going to go on a retreat, or I'm going to go on this adventure, follow the map to whatever it is. And then you get there and realize that this is actually just more of the same. But the message is still, you've got all of these things going on and everything is really hard. Instead of just doing something differently in that regard and creating space for yourself to, in that way, we're adding another thing on to the list to do that. And I think that is where the water gets really muddy, because for some people, like I had somebody on here who does vacations that are for moms. And I love that idea because it's not booked around a retreat. It's like go and do and be. It's not go and go through this like 27-step system or this 3-day like immersive, you can't talk to anybody, yada, right? It's hard. That's a hard space to navigate, I think, for people that are looking for something different.
Yeah, but I like how you said, take your life and what do you do? You have children, because I try and look at each one of my kids, and I also, there are so 4 of them who have families and kids and businesses that they're running. 2 of them are entrepreneurs. Anyway, and it's like, what is it in your life that you can shift a bit, right? Like you were saying, and I have one son and daughter-in-law who love the beach, and they can afford to go on trips to the ocean. We're in Colorado. So, but it's like, how can you make what you love about that a part of your life? Honest to God, that's like really sounds, I don't know what it sounds like, but it works. Like you said, and sometimes it is going on a vacation and sometimes it is getting out of your life, but there's such value to be had in not trying, giving yourself a break. In the time when you're raising your children like you are, and I have hindsight, but it is the most busiest time of your entire life. You are managing, not only is your body, building babies, or even if you adopt, or, your whole systems, mentally, emotionally, physically, are changing. And you are including humans or other humans, even if you're, and your marriage or partnership or relationship. It's like, wow, that's a lot. And you're figuring out how to make a living, do life, have something that feels right or good. And as your story is, some of that stuff falls in, you find it just by living. And I think that is a big, I like that. It's like, let there be space around that. Don't be too determined on having to figure it out. And we talked about that now, but open it up. Because I can see myself doing this, but I've watched my kids in their 20s, 30s, and now some of them are in their 40s, to my 2, figure it out. And some of it just has to happen naturally. And then you're also learning about yourself. So you're learning about who you are and what you do like. You don't know. You don't always know. And it changes. It can change in 1 year of motherhood to the next year, to the next year. So kind of and bring in things that delight you and bring you joy and that bring you pleasure, whatever they are, and make it a part of your life in however you can, and understand you are in an incredibly intense time. And I think that's why your body's like, it's like, okay, you're younger, and then you get to be, but I see a lot of older people who never don't really, like, then women, I should say, that their kids grow up, and then there's the problem with that. Then what do we do? Oh no, empty nest. Oh, and so while you're embrace the fact that you are in the high intensity living phase of your life.
Mm-hmm.
And that will pass, but while you're in it, it's like, what's really important to you?
Yeah.
And do it, because you aren't going to get time to do it right now. You're just, it's not going to fit in.
Mm-hmm.
You got to kind of go, okay, I'm going to do that. I'm going to try that. I'm going to make that. I like that. So how can I bring that to my life without having to sell all my belongings and move or
Or just lock the door and walk away. That's
yes. Or I used to want to do that all the time. I was like, can I just run away from home? And I do remember one time, and I was 39, I think, 38, 39, 5 kids, full on, lived in that East Coast big house. And I remember I was taking the laundry out and the washer and put it in the dryer. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be my life forever. Just going to lie in the laundry room because it never ends. And it was like this moment, and I was like, I got to do something. So what I did was I was like, I got to read some books again. I love reading. I'm a writer. And so I got some books. And back then you went to the bookstore and bought books, right? And I bought this one book and I loved it. And it was all about living something more. Well, when you have a life that, you have everything that you ever thought you wanted, the kids, the job, but then you don't feel satisfied. There's something more. And I was like, oh, I love this book. Yes, that's me. And the answer was pretty much, you're longing for the treasure inside of you. You're just longing to connect with yourself and go, I just need to listen to myself, or remember I am a person and that I am still here, and bring her out. So I did start to, I was like, okay, I'd like to meditate in the morning, and I like to have inspirational quotes, and I love all that. So I started to do that again, and I wrote to the author. I wrote a letter, mailed it. And then about a month later, the Oprah Winfrey Show called me.
What?
Because I swear, yes. And so I've told this story on many times before, but and so they said it was one of her producers, and this was in the heyday of the Oprah Winfrey Show. And she said, the author's going to be on her show as a guest. And she had been on her show before. And the producer said, so we got your letter from the author. She thought it was such a beautiful letter. And we're looking for guests to come to be on the Oprah show with the author. And I said, no, you're not. Yeah. And then of course he was. And so it went on like that in the 90s, everything, he was like, well, we want to record your voice. We want reading the letter. We want to come and take pictures. We want to do this. We want to do that. So I had to send stuff FedEx. And anyway, it all turned out I came out of the closet, I say, the spiritual closet, because all of my things that gave me such satisfaction, that reminded me of me, like that I love to do, like read inspirational books and collect quotes and write and journal. And that was all in my walk-in closet. I kept it all in the closet, all my stuff, my candles, my little, And then when the kids would all go to school and the husband would go to work, I'd take it out of the closet and I'd sit in a chair and I'd do my thing. And that was me remembering me. Well, so Oprah, it ended up I didn't physically go to the Oprah show, but my closet, my video of my closet, my pictures of me and my kids and all of that was all on the show. And back in the day, they used to do that, photos of the people. And Oprah was talking to me. I was saying, this is my closet and this is where and Oprah was like, thank you, Mary. And so I always said, I came on the spiritual closet on Oprah, and it was aired in 1999 in March. About it, yeah. So that was me. And so I always, remembering I'm a person and I wouldn't give up. I didn't want to give up, although I, want to run away from home. My being a mom. And I mean, it's one of the most, for me, it's everything. It's like, it meant a lot to me. I always kind of knew I would be a mom, but I also feel like I didn't get to know myself before I became a mom. And so during that, and sometimes that's what happens. We don't get to go. I always felt like I missed out because I never got to have that no children time,
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes that happens. And so I decided I had to bring that back no matter what was going on in my life. And through that, and then being on Oprah, it was a year later that we moved from that place to Colorado, which is much more, Colorado has a different vibe. And I was like, oh, good, I'm not in that rat race, that really intense. I'm important and so are you. And I have, 20 degrees and I'm a lawyer and you better, and all those, all that East Coast seaboard stuff. I was like, Colorado. Woo, this is good. And then within a year, all this stuff was coming out about what was that really going on at my ex and his big job. And so my life changed, but I remembered who I am. I remembered and I started to cultivate a relationship with myself again. And I think that is something I really feel is important for moms to do in any small, big way they want to, and to get to know who they are as moms too. Cause who you were and now I can talk to my daughter about that because she did do don't you dare have a baby until, I told her, don't you dare have a baby until you go to college and make sure you can, financially support yourself and find a good guy that, and she did, but she's still
figuring it out.
Oh my God, Mom, I can't wait till the day I don't have to get up in the morning she goes, I didn't appreciate it when I had it, when it was only me to take care of, she said.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I know. Why do you think I love it so much now that I don't? I never had that. And I said, I get to just be now, but I wouldn't give up the rest I wouldn't give it up at all. It was part of life. But there's this piece that I think then I feel like we're each so wise too, where we can be our own, when we tap into our inner remembering who we are, we can, oh yeah, I really like to do that. I really kind of need that. I need that. I don't know what they're saying, but I need it.
I like that, the curiosity piece. And I also like that, point out like when all of this stuff is happening or maybe coming to the surface is that there is so much intensity around the motherhood journey now, given all of the things that we have on the outside. So everything can feel heightened and you're trying to do your best and trying to do a good job, whatever that is, that's going to mean different things to different people. But it's this period of intensity and then having this curiosity about, okay, is this something that I even care about? And then also like, I'm supposed to do this. Like, I'm not a retreat person. But you hear about it enough and you're like, maybe I should try going on a retreat. Would that work? I went on a retreat last year and I left after a day. It was like, this is not the space that I need to be in. But you don't get to that unless, ideally you don't get to that at all, right? That's crappy. That whole story is very long. But that you knowing, being able to listen to yourself and saying, this is not the space that I need to be in and I need to move to a different space is something that comes with going through periods of time in your life where you're in a space and you're like, I don't want to be in this space. And you may not be able to get out of that space. And knowing what that feels like to stay in something that doesn't work and knowing what works or what feels better when you move away from that and being able to firmly stand in that and say, I know this is not right for me, despite what everyone is telling me, despite what the brochure says, despite what social media says. I know that this, whatever this is not meant for me or is not, it's not lighting a fire anywhere. So, how do we shift away from that and move towards those things that do feel great? Like, some people they're not into writing, and some people aren't into that. They're into like being out in nature or whatever it is. And I think that's a really big takeaway from this is whatever it is not, you're not going to find it from a crowd consensus. You're not going to pay to have someone help you discover what it is. You have to actually get really quiet and really hone in on where things need to go and be super curious about that.
Yeah. That, yes. And be willing to to go into the situations and find out. I went on that journey with my whole grief journey. And that's how I found out about you through another woman who the things that people were telling me to do didn't feel right. And so, I had to go into them. And in that journey, my body was so loud, saying, no, run from this retreat, And I was like, oh, okay. But, and being kind and compassionate over and over to ourselves, because life is let's try this. Okay, that didn't feel right. Okay, well, what about this? But as you said, turning in and asking and feeling, what does that feel like to me? Well, I think I might like it. Okay, I didn't like it. Okay, well, then that's okay. That's how we learn. And that's how children do it,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's it, right? It's that when you put a plate of food in front of kids and they say, I don't want to eat that. Right. And you're like, well, you should eat that because it's good for you. And they're like, ain't happening. That we're all just trying to get back to the 5-year-old who's been served up like steamed whatever, who doesn't want it. We're just trying to all get back to being that kid again, to be like, no, and you can't make me. you know, no bargaining, no conversation, no coercion, nothing is happening. Like, I have decided that this is not right for me and I will not move forward with this endeavor. Thank you very much.
I like that. That's a good one, because yes. And it's not easy to be parenting that kid, but what a freedom. And that is different from the way I was raised. And I tried not to do that to my kids. I tried to give them that space, but I did as good as I could, to the freedom of, if you don't like it, no, I love that, because I think that's really important right now, Ashley.
Mhm.
The no bargaining, nothing. It's a no.
It's a no. It just has to be a no.
It's a
Yeah. I
no.
mean, yeah, right. There's no.
That's important right now. It's like, no, not happening.
Yeah, I know. And it just sometimes it makes me feel sad, but it also makes me feel hopeful to know that ways of certain parts of what we're living right now have happened in the past and we've
Yes.
come through in a way that has led to positive change. And then parts of me get sad because I'm like, haven't we already done this? Haven't we settled this conversation? Haven't we fought this fight? And haven't we already figured out like the way before is not great? And we got to somehow drag back this really tired ideal or strategy or pressure, whatever it is. But we know it doesn't work. Why do we have to kick this thing around again? And then hopefully not hope, but my belief is that we are going to get back to a place that feels less like the current state.
Yes, I do offer that. I see that. It's like we're doing part two. We're doing part a lot, but as I said, as a young girl during Vietnam, it's like, oh, we're doing that again. The civil rights. And I remember I just shared this with someone. I was like 8 years old and I lived outside of a different city. And and I remember hearing Dr. Martin Luther King and going, oh, of course, and I was 8 and I go, what's the matter with these adults? What's their problem? And here it is, because it didn't get it. I think that it didn't have a resolve yet. There's still some root that is being pulled out right now that's rotten, that we're going to have. Yeah, there's hope because, we've been here before, but we didn't quite complete it,
Mhm.
And so also, I think with the pandemic, because I think, and I said this too, during the pandemic, I was, 3 years into my grief journey. And then I had my son who had a heart condition and he was going through stuff during the pandemic. And I was like, wow, this is a lot. This is so heavy and so intense. And that requires a slowing down and a turning within and a lot of healing. We
Mhm.
never did that collectively. That never happened. It was like, and this is what I see happening with motherhood too. It's like, okay, got a baby, get back on that, go out there and act as if you just can do everything and put that baby on your hip and just keep
Yeah.
being that, kind of robotic. And we did that after the pandemic. And it was like, wait, nobody, we didn't collectively grieve. We just had a lot of disagreements about a lot of crazy things and then didn't ever settle on anything. So I feel like what we're going through now is the last kind of uprooting. And then there is hope for, okay, let's make this work
Mhm.
for everyone here, the taking care of each other as mothers, as families, as mothers, as communities. We know you got to take care of the people. If you
Mhm.
don't, we have nothing. Right.
Yeah.
So it's taking care, learning a new compassion and a new way of caring, but honoring and acknowledging that we've gone through a lot as motherhood too.
Yeah, for sure. There's a book that my kids have, and I will tag it in the show notes, but it's called, what is it called? It's The Seeds. I can't remember. They got it during the pandemic, but it's basically a book it's about this prince and he carries a bag that has seeds in it, and there are like bright seeds and there are dark seeds, and he goes around and people hand you dark seeds and people hand you the light seeds, and he goes around and he plants all the seeds that he's given, and the light seeds grow like the beautiful trees that have the bright seeds, the beautiful trees with the leaves and you can climb in the branches and all that stuff. And the dark seeds grow trees that have spikes on them and all of that stuff. And he meets somebody who tells him, like, you don't have to plant the dark seeds. You can just not plant the dark seeds, and shows him how to like take all of how to cut down the dark trees, and the dark trees grow under the roots of the healthy trees. And it's this whole thing. And so I'm reading this to my kids and it's during the pandemic and everything feels heavy and like I'm crying and they're like, Mom, this is a story about, and I'm like, it's so much more.
Well, it is.
But I think about that, when you're talking about this is that, we are trying to get so much of the dark out in terms of the messaging and the way people are made to feel and the way that people are treated and all of those parts. But it's like, we've got to really like get down to the roots of that and get that out, because that, if you don't, it's like rhubarb, like crappy ideals and crappy messaging and all that stuff is rhubarb. You can't kill that stuff. You got to like get it out at the source, and you got to get it all out. You can't get a little because it will just grow back forever and ever. So we've got to de-rhubarb.
Like lamb's ear.
Yes.
That's the
Yes.
same. Yeah. Yes, we do. And we're up for that. I really
Mhm.
think, and I believe that as a mom and as everything I've, been through as a mother, we're so resilient. We really are. And I want to say, we don't even have to look for it. I don't care. And it's different for everyone. What makes you resilient and strong? It could be that I get up every morning, that I actually, or that, so, and just, yeah. And take out the weed. If everybody weeded the rhubarb just a little bit,
Yeah.
it would all be gone.
Yeah, we need to all get our gardening gloves on. Not like we need one more thing to do, but we can just get our metaphorical gardening gloves on, not the literal ones, unless you do love gardening, and then go ahead, garden all day long.
Everybody's doing their part. That was I said when I was a little girl too, I would be like, if everybody just did their part and did the things they love and do the thing, we'd all be good.
Yeah.
But no, we have to get out we need, I was, idealistic. Well, I still am, but we got to get out those weeds, those roots, those rotten roots.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, it has been absolutely wonderful to chat with you. And I think that it's true, but, getting quiet and figuring out what works for you is the broader message in all of this. Because if you wait around for someone to tell you about you, you're never going to find that person, and that you're the best person to know about what works, and having that, innate curiosity or fostering that curiosity. So thank you so much for joining me. And please let everyone know where they can find you.
Sure. Thank you. This was very delightful and inspiring. On my website, I have everything I do on my website. It's my name, MaryDagostino.com. And I do a bunch of different things, but yeah, all in support of you finding out your joy, your bliss, your light.
I love it. However you figure out what it is, that's all that matters, right? It doesn't matter the path, it's just the destination. So thank you again for joining me.